Rip. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. I'm learning to put a pause in right here because I cut all this out when I put it on LinkedIn. Because LinkedIn only lets me have 10 minutes, and so I have to cut the fun stuff out. But if you want to see the fun stuff, go to Periscope or YouTube. Every day I put the whole thing up there. So it's a lot better, a lot more fun, but I do keep LinkedIn under 10 minutes, and it looks like I'm a serious guy. I'm real shiny today. I have to lean back. Okay, so let's get going. Okay, first of all, and this is really an important story. A Florida man catches a huge tarpon while fishing from a rainbow unicorn floaty. And, you know, I wasn't sure this was a real. There's the guy in the floaty, and here's the guy bringing in this tarpon that looks like it's about 60 plus inches, the kind that most nobody catches no matter how hard they try, and he's fishing from a floaty. So then I went over to his, and this will probably not be set to the right. Yeah, it's not set to the right spot, so we'll fix that. I always forget to do this part. Okay, so there he is. I checked out the video, and yes, there is a video, and he said in the video...
Yeah. Oh, it's big. Oh, that motherfucker's like a tuna.
It's really good.
It's flopping the other direction. Got it, real. It's right here. Oh, that thing is huge.
Yeah, that thing is huge. Okay, so anyway, it seems to be real, and he caught it in a floaty, and in his Facebook post, he even said that, I don't know if you guys saw that or not, he even said that the drifting capabilities of the unicorn floaty were instrumental in attracting the tarpon. Because the wind pushes the floaty along really well because of the unicorn part that makes it like a sail. So I wanted you to consider that when you're trying to catch the big fish. Now, you know, is this a thing? I didn't know. So I visited YouTube because that's where all truth resides. And I found this one about a shark pulling a guy. I didn't really watch all of these. Pulling a guy out to sea 2 miles out to sea in his unicorn floaty. That's one of the risks of the unicorn floaty. There, you know, you might need a bigger boat, as they said in Jaws. Now this dog one I think is fake. Oh, there's the real dog, the little dog. Okay, and here's stranded on the ocean in a 24 unicorn float. But apparently there is, this is the one we just saw. There is, no, this is, oh, so that's like a year ago. That might be a different one. Yeah, it's a different guy. But apparently this is a thing, and you want to put this keep this in mind in your fishing arsenal. And the most important takeaway for me is that you don't always need a lot of equipment to get your goals accomplished. I want you to think about that today. You don't need the biggest consulting firm. You might not even need the Super Bowl ad. So have at it. Let's go. And I'm seeing some hearts, so I know I'm on over there. Now let's click to something else. Okay. Now this one was a really interesting article because it got at this idea of efficiency and performance. I would guess that if you weighed all the fish you've caught and you took the cost of your boat, you know, you can pour endless money into boats. I lived a life with boats, and I know that for a fact. But there's like no limit to it. There's always somebody with a bigger, more expensive boat. So if we take the $100 the guy paid for the floaty, I'm being generous, it might have been $50. They sell them at Aldi now. So let's say he spent $100 on that. You know, I know guys who spend $100 on a leader at Orvis. You know, one fly fishing piece of the line. They spend $1,000 for the reel, $1,000 for the rod. I once asked Jack, who was the editor at Fly Fisherman, and we were friends for a while, why people needed $2,000 rods for fly fishing. He said, or reels, rather. He said, I don't know. I just pull it in with my hand. I said, so do I. I just use the reel for storage at the end. He said, me too. So again, you don't always need the most equipment. Sometimes it's better to have expertise than it is to have expensive equipment. Oops, I got to go over here to this. Okay, so here's 4 steps to performance marketing. I think there's a lot to keep in mind in this article. Thank you, Franz. We'll look you up and hopefully connect with you. Marketers need to shift a bigger part of their budgets, if not all, to performance-based models where there is a direct correlation between marketing spend and the impact on company results. What Franz doesn't mention is the difficulty of attribution, which is maybe the main takeaway here, is that because it's difficult to tell what's going on, especially in digital, marketers have largely abandoned. They'll look at one component of their marketing, say cost per click, or cost per click through, or cost, or persistence, or take some metric, and they'll focus all their mind on that, and they forget about acquiring customers. Or worse yet, they acquire customers, but they forget about profitability. And I've told you that story a couple times. Or worse yet, they make some money, little tiny money, or they lose some money, but they figure they'll make it up in the long term, and they don't look at customer persistence, customer reorder, lifetime value. I don't like the concept of lifetime value. Most of the ways of calculating it are wrong. But again, if you have expertise, you may be able to be more performance, performance marketing successful. Okay, I get brain freeze. So you start by your target CPA. Now that's a good place to start, but you really do need to keep 4 or 5 more variables in order. Perfecting your performance marketing is about optimization and getting the details right. Your calls to action, your workflow, and internal process to convert customers, and your product all make a world of difference. Yeah, they all do. They all matter. It's tricky. You also want to think about what your customers really like. You'll hear, we need more leads, but really what you should be saying is we need more customers. And you really want to say we need more persistent customers. And of course, one of the big challenges here is that most marketers don't use much modeling. And so they accept a certain amount of fudge in their analysis. So they'll say, well, how are our 0 to 12 month buyers doing in terms of their reorder rates, etc.? And they do okay. They do best of any group. What they don't realize is that the customers that they acquired through Amazon don't come back at all, maybe. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying it's possible. It's possible. Because people buy from Amazon, they don't think about your being the merchant of record, that you shipped it to them. You found the item. You marketed it to Amazon and through Amazon. So sometimes acquiring customers, even profitably or at a minuscule profit, can undermine the long-term buyer relationship. Something to think about. Another thing you should look at is your marketing budget. Performance marketing, when you stack it up against the overall budget, is usually relatively small. And again, it's often because we just don't know what's going on. I'm a big advocate for mail, as you know. You've heard me say it over and over and over. Because mail, you can measure who got mailed, who ordered, who didn't. You can see the impact. You can hold out some mail to some portion of your audience. You can start to see what the incremental lift is over all your other advertising, which is more difficult to measure. You can also see after the fact, this is really important in the modeling, you can see, because you have that higher level of engagement, you can see who got mailed and which ones responded. So even if it was a variable you didn't think of and you didn't think to key code separately or to split test separately, you can see the split tests in the modeling process, which reveals more customer profiles that might be overperforming or underperforming that you can either leave out or you can spend more on acquisition. All of that stuff comes together to make performance marketing work. Franz also says you need to solidify your team's technology output, but as far as I can tell, it's gobbledygook. And I can tell you that it says automation will only increase efficiency. Yeah? Are you sure? Just think about group calendars, or think about I remember when we automated the copywriting and typesetting process for catalog design and development, and we were generating like 24 catalogs a year, so we had a pretty high pace of production. What happened? You'd think we could shorten the time to produce a catalog, but what actually happened was people would wait till the very last minute because of the WYSIWYG interface. Instead of evaluating the copy when it was written, way back at the beginning, when we had to send it out to typesetting, get galleys produced, wax them down onto cardboard, all of that process, you better know before you start that the copy is approved, because you're not going to fix it with an X-Acto knife after the fact. And then you had to do separations, et cetera, et cetera. So now we have it just real time. You can make changes right up till you go on press. And guess what happens? Everybody's making changes right up until the time you get on press. So nothing was more efficient. It was way less efficient because people would wait till the last second. Which brings us to efficiency. Okay? And Moshe here says this is an outdated concept. And I understand where he's coming from. It's interesting, though, because he cites some really old authors making his points. So alongside efficiency, there are other characterizations of value. I think it was St. Augustine who said, wisdom is knowing something's worth. And that sounds simple, but it's not simple. Wisdom is knowing what one thing is worth versus another. Which is the right thing? Which is the best thing? Which is the long term? And none of us see that. None of us. Human beings are notoriously short-sighted. And that's why our customer acquisition is such a mess. Because we look for clicks and leads instead of looking at our customers that have been with us for 20 years and saying, what are those guys like? What happened to them? We try to manipulate the customer journey short term instead of figuring out what we did to earn the customer's trust way back. And you can find this out. I mean, it's not easy, but you can find it out. You can give them a call, talk to them. And that's kind of the theme of this article. And he says most major innovations brought us kicking and screaming into the future. And efficiency's been around since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. The ratio of useful output to total input. So how much did you put in? What'd you get out? Makes a lot of sense. But before that, most artisans knew their main customers and generally worked to produce to order, which is why, the great castles of Europe have beautiful ornate furniture and the rest of the world lived on boxes or logs or something handcrafted that they built themselves. Okay, we have better furniture across the board on average, but not as good as the Louis XIV chairs. I can tell you that. Okay. So in the cost-benefit analysis, cost came first because it was easier to control. You can always cut costs, and we've talked about manufacturers slashing costs and trying to make the product look the same. And you see it all over when you start repairing appliances. If customers left without buying because the representative was rude, how much did we lose? And again, this is the long-term view versus the short-term view. Short-term view, it's easy to measure. Long-term view, it's basically impossible. Okay? So, and he says it's not a new concept. Adam Smith mentioned it in 1776. But customers tend to want the highest possible quality that they can afford, right? They don't say, and usually just a little more than they can afford. That's the way I am anyway, So I drive a Lexus, but I don't buy the new ones right off the lot. They're nice. Boy, on a long trip, there's nothing like it. Doing the minimum work won't cut it today. Customers are ready to pay more for a better product or service. And he's talking about having a cyst removed in his brain. The local hospital wanted to crack his head open, but he found a specialist in a faraway city that did it laparoscopically. I know the difference. I had my knee cracked open back in 1977 to do an ACL. They don't do that anymore. Not anything close. Okay, lower prices raise the benefits. So there's no one-size-fits-all. No longer works. And I would say the same thing for consulting. One of the first rules I learned in consulting was what applies to one company doesn't necessarily apply to its competitor. You might want to take them in the opposite direction. Had a wonderful talk with a large industrial distributor yesterday, and they were talking about how They've really done a lot of work in their operations side, in their shipping optimization and their inventory, but they really are doing marketing the same way. And I gave them some ideas right off the bat, but I told them that I'd worked in their industry and I'd had something like 7 competitors over the years work with me. And they all wanted the same thing when we started, and I convinced them not to do the same thing. And I got all of their revenue per piece to go up, which is amazing, with different strategies, with different advice. Because one size fits all doesn't work, and it doesn't even work in this quest for value. Okay? 30 years ago, he was starting out as head of a complaint department, and he was on the basketball team, and he asked some people about their experience at the company. And one guy said, well, we started implementing TQM, and the guy saw a problem and shut down the line to take care of it. And his boss said he started yelling at him that he was an idiot because now they wouldn't make their productivity bonus. I think it might have been Toyota, but Honda or somebody. They built 2 new factories. They put one in Japan and they put one in the USA. And when they started out, the USA ran the line to deliver the cars at the highest possible speed. Okay? So their throughput was the highest possible. Whereas in Japan, they ran it at about the lowest possible speed. And every time they found a problem, they shut it down. Well, in the beginning, the Americans beat the Japanese like crazy because, they would produce way more cars. Now, long-term view, those cars had more defects coming out of the door. And when they found that out, they slowed down the Americans and made them look closer, which also made them go slower. So they ended up basically starting over on the process, whereas the Japanese factory kept getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And by the end, they were running at the maximum possible speed, but their cars had almost perfect, flawless manufacturing. Okay, so the main takeaway on this is that complaint handling can be profitable. I remember when I was head of customer service, I would go down and listen to those people, and I would listen to their calls, and we learned more from our customers than we learned any other way, listening to complaints. Not everything was helpful. I mean, we had some ridiculous stuff. But in fact, we learned from that too. I remember we were selling imprinted merchandise, and a lawyer called. One rule is don't market to lawyers. It's actually a thing in the business-to-business world. And the lawyer called, and he said that we had a money-back guarantee, no questions asked, and his secretary had decided it would be cute to order some lifesavers and with the company name on it. And first off, she didn't realize she had ordered 500 little lifesavers, so she had a lot, more than she wanted. She wanted a couple dozen. Second, I think she had his credit card too. Secondly, she spelled the name of the company wrong. So since we had a no questions asked guarantee, oftentimes they would send these people to me. I'd pick up the phone, somebody be yelling at me and saying how he was going to sue me and do all this stuff. Anyway, the net effect of that was that we learned that we had to put some qualifications in our guarantee. We started adding the words, customer imprint is your responsibility. If you spell the name of your own company, we're not taking it back. That's ridiculous. And you know why we did it? It wasn't because we didn't want to give customers their due. It was because every time we did that, it cost our good customers something more. And that's the real sad part. We were abusing our real customers, our customers with genuine issues, in order to deal with problems quickly. In order to just say, okay, yeah, here, have your money back, go away. We don't want customers like that. What we do is we want to reward the good customers. So anyway, most organizations don't do this. It takes 4.2 calls to get resolution. I've been working on a problem with my cable provider for 6 months. Actually, they only got involved in the last 2 or 3 months, but it's been call after call after call. The call center said, no, they can't do it here. We'll send out a repairman. So yesterday the cable guy came. He said, no, I can't do it from here. You have to call. I said, well, they told me the opposite. And he said, well, call the security department. Tell them your story. They can do it right away because it's a security issue for you. Okay, we made it into a security issue. Zappos rewards their phone operators when they make at least 2 attempts to personalize the phone call. Now, I bought some shoes from Zappos, only once, and they were leather shoes, but they had a vinyl trim on it, and the vinyl trim broke right away. I still wear those shoes. They look like junk, but they're very comfy, and Zappos wouldn't help me at all. He said, "Did you wear them outside?" "Yeah." "Well, then our guarantee's, void." "Thanks a lot." I said, I'm not complaining about your guarantee. I'm complaining about the shoes. They're very badly made, and you should go back to the manufacturer. They didn't want to hear that. The manufacturer should have heard it. I think they have changed it. And to conclude, he had a complaint every now and then that customers would break a tooth on one of our products, which contain nuts and sometimes contain shell pieces. And what we used to do is just refer them right to our lawyers. And then I decided, why not just pay their dental bill? That's probably what they want, and send them a nice gift basket. Well, the boss got mad because he said, now everybody's going to start complaining they broke a tooth because you're not verifying it. Well, you kind of do if they went to the dentist. But anyway, it turned out that there was no increase in broken tooth complaints. They actually paid less out to their customers. The customers were probably more happy because they didn't have to go through lawyers. Only people that were upset were the lawyers. Okay, so nobody cares about the blame. Nobody cares about whose fault. The question is, how can you solve the problem? And I think it's a well-written article, and I like Moshe for pointing this out again. However, it ultimately ties exactly back to this same point. Wisdom says, let's look at the big picture. Let's look at the value. That's what we're after in direct marketing. And that's what we're after in customer machine language predictive modeling. Have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will think you're smart. Bye-bye.